Look at your hands for a moment. These hands that have gripped so tightly onto the steering wheel of life, white-knuckled and determined to control every turn, every stoplight, every potential detour. How exhausting it's been, hasn't it? This relentless need to orchestrate every aspect of our existence has become the very chain that binds us, preventing us from experiencing the magnificent dance of life as it was meant to be lived. I stand before you today, not as someone who's mastered this lesson, but as someone who's lived through the suffocating grip of control and discovered a profound truth that changed everything, the truth that our desperate attempt to control life is actually, you see, we've been sold a lie so convincing that it's become the foundation of our modern existence, the lie that success, happiness, and fulfillment come from maintaining an iron grip on every aspect of our lives. We plan, we schedule, we manipulate, we orchestrate, believing that if we just try hard enough, we can force life to conform to our will. Has it worked? Has all this controlling actually brought you the peace you're seeking? Has it made your relationships deeper, your joy more profound, your life more meaningful? Or has it left you feeling exhausted, anxious, and somehow still unfulfilled despite all your efforts? I remember sitting in my study late one night, surrounded by carefully crafted plans and meticulously organized schedules. Everything in my life was planned down to the minute. I had contingency plans for my contingency plans. My relationships were carefully managed, my career precisely plotted, my future mapped out in exquisite detail. And yet, there I sat, feeling more lost and disconnected than ever. That night, I realized something that would forever change my perspective. The universe has a wisdom far greater than our limited human understanding. Every time we try to force life into our narrow vision of how things should be, we're actually resisting the natural flow of existence. A flow that, if we would only trust it, knows exactly where to take us. Think about nature for a moment. Have you ever seen a flower forcing itself to bloom? Does a river stress about which way it should flow? Does a bird anxiously plan its migration route months in advance? No. There's an intelligence at work in the natural world that far supersedes our human need for control. This doesn't mean we become passive observers in our own lives. Far from it. What I'm talking about is something far more powerful, a state of active surrender to the wisdom of life itself. It's about learning to co-create with the universe rather than trying to strong-arm it into submission. We share something profound with you. Every single time in your life when something magnificent happened, something that brought you joy beyond measure, it probably wasn't something you meticulously planned. The best moments in life, the ones that take our breath away, are usually the ones we couldn't have orchestrated if we tried. The question isn't whether you should take action in your life. The question is, what's the energy behind your actions? Are you acting from a place of trust and alignment or from a place of fear and control? When you're in a state of trust, your actions flow naturally. They come from a place of inspiration rather than desperation. You're not forcing, pushing, or manipulating. You're allowing yourself to be guided by something greater than your own limited perspective. But here's where many of us get stuck. We say, that sounds nice, but I have responsibilities. I have goals. I can't just let go of control. And you're right. You do have responsibilities. You do have dreams and aspirations. But here's the paradigm shift that will change everything. Letting go of control doesn't mean letting go of your dreams. It means letting go of your attachment to how those dreams must be achieved. When you release your death grip on the steering wheel of life, something miraculous happens. You begin to notice opportunities you couldn't see before because you were too busy forcing your way forward. You start to experience synchronicities that seem almost magical. Doors open that you didn't even know existed. This is because when we stop controlling, we start connecting. We connect with our own inner wisdom. We connect with the natural flow of life. We connect with possibilities that our controlling mind would have dismissed as impossible. I've seen this transformation in countless lives. People who were once trapped in the prison of their own control mechanisms, who learned to trust the process, and who now live lives of such joy and fulfillment that their former controlling selves wouldn't even recognize. But let's be real. This isn't about flipping a switch. This is about developing a new relationship with life itself. It's about learning to dance with uncertainty rather than trying to eliminate it. It's about understanding that our need for control is really just fear in disguise, fear that if we don't manage everything, something bad will happen. The truth is, bad things happen whether we try to control them or not. The difference is that when we're not exhausting ourselves trying to control everything, we have the energy and presence of mind to respond to life's challenges with grace and wisdom rather than fear and resistance. Think about the areas in your life right now where you're trying to maintain control. Your relationships, your career, your children's lives, your future. Now imagine what it would feel like to release that grip just a little bit. Not to abandon your dreams or responsibilities, but to hold them with open hands rather than clenched. What if? Instead of trying to force outcomes, you focused on showing up fully in each moment. What if, instead of trying to control others, you invested that energy in becoming the best version of yourself? What if, instead of resisting what is, you learned to work with it, to flow with it, to let it teach you what you need to learn? This is where true power lies. Not in controlling life, but in collaborating with it. Not in forcing our way forward, but in learning to sail with the winds of change, adjusting our sails rather than cursing the wind. The hardest truth I've had to face in my own journey is this: our need to control often comes from our deepest wounds. We try to control life because somewhere along the way, we learned that the world isn't safe, that people can't be trusted, that if we don't manage everything ourselves, it will all fall apart. Because what I know to be true, those beliefs, no matter how deeply ingrained, are not who you are. There's stories you've been carrying, stories that may have served you at one point, but are now keeping you from experiencing the full magnificence of life. Let me share something powerful with you. In my darkest moments of trying to control everything, I discovered that what I was really seeking wasn't control at all. It was peace. We think that if we can just control everything, we'll finally feel safe, finally feel at peace. But it's exactly the opposite. True peace comes when we learn to trust the process of life itself. This isn't just philosophical talk. This is practical, life-changing truth. When you begin to trust the process, everything shifts. Your body relaxes, your mind clears, your energy flows more freely. You start making decisions from a place of wisdom rather than... Think about the last time you truly felt alive. Perhaps it was during a moment of spontaneous laughter with friends, or while standing in awe of a beautiful sunset, or when you followed a sudden inspiration that led to something wonderful. In those moments, you weren't controlling. You were being. You were flowing with life rather than trying to direct it. That's what we're really talking about here. Learning to flow with life rather than against it. But how do we do this? How do we make this shift from control to trust? It starts with understanding that trust isn't something you do. It's consider a tree in a storm. The rigid branches that refuse to bend are the ones that break. But the flexible branches that move with the wind survive the strongest gales. That's what trust in the process looks like. Not rigid control, but flexible strength. This journey from control to trust isn't about becoming passive. It's about becoming wise. It's about understanding the difference between what we can influence and what we need to accept. It's about knowing when to take action and when to allow things to unfold. You might be thinking, but what about my goals? What about my dreams? Don't I need to take control to make things happen? This is where we need to make an important distinction. Having clear intentions, taking inspired action, and working towards your dreams is not the same as trying to control everything. The difference lies in the energy behind your actions. So when you're operating from trust, your actions come from a place of inspiration rather than desperation. You're not trying to force outcomes. You're co-creating with life itself. Let me give you a practical example. Instead of trying to control exactly how a project will unfold, set your intention for what you want to create, take inspired action, and then stay open to how it might manifest. Often, what unfolds is far better than what you could have planned. This is where synchronicity comes into play. When you release the need to control everything, you create space for magic to happen. You start noticing opportunities that were always there, but that your controlling mind couldn't see. You begin to experience what some call flow state. where things seem to effortlessly fall. But let's be honest, this isn't always easy. There will be times when your old patterns of control try to reassert themselves. Times when fear creeps in and tells you that if you don't take control, everything will fall apart. These moments are not failures. They're opportunities to practice trust at a deeper level. The universe has a much bigger perspective than we do. What looks like a disaster from our limited viewpoint might be exactly what needs to happen for our highest good. The job loss that seems devastating might be clearing the way for your true calling. The relationship that didn't work out might be making space for a deeper connection. This is where real trust comes in. Not just trusting when things are going well, but trusting even in the midst of uncertainty. Trusting that even when we can't see the whole picture, there's a greater wisdom at work. Think about the times in your life when something that seemed terrible at the moment led to something wonderful. How many of us can look back and say, if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be where I am today? Those moments are evidence of intelligence far greater than our controlling minds. As you sit here right now, I invite you to take a deep breath and feel into this truth. You don't have to carry the weight of controlling everything anymore. You can release that burden. You can trust that as you align yourself with the flow of life, everything you truly need will come to you in perfect timing. This doesn't mean you'll never face challenges, but it does mean you'll face them differently. Instead of seeing challenges as problems to control, you'll begin to see them as opportunities for growth and transformation. Instead of resisting what is, you'll learn to ask, what is this here to teach me? The shift from control to trust is one of those profound journeys we can undertake. It's a journey that leads us from the confined space of our controlling mind to the infinite possibilities that exist when we learn to co-create with life itself. The most profound changes in our lives often begin with the smallest shifts in perspective. As we continue this journey together, I want to share with you some powerful truths about what happens when we truly begin to trust the process of life. You see, there's a fundamental misunderstanding about what it means to trust. Many people think trusting means becoming passive or giving up. Nothing could be further from the truth. Real trust is active. It's alive. It's a moment-by-moment choice to align ourselves with something greater than our own limited perspectives. Let me tell you about a powerful realization that changed everything for me. I had spent years building walls of control around myself, thinking they would keep me safe. These walls were made of detailed plans, backup plans, and endless attempts to predict and prevent every possible problem. But one day, standing in front of these walls I'd built, I realized something. They weren't protecting me. They were imprisoning me. That's what control does. It creates an illusion of safety while actually cutting us off from the very experiences that would help us grow and thrive. It's like trying to protect a flower by never letting it face the wind. You end up with a weak stem that can't support its own bloom. But here's where it gets interesting. When you begin to trust the process, when you start to loosen your grip on control, something remarkable happens. Your energy shifts. Instead of spending all your power trying to make things happen, you begin to notice what's already happened. Instead of forcing doors open, you start seeing the doors that are already open, inviting you through. This is where many people get stuck. They say, I understand this intellectually, but how do I actually do it? How do I trust when everything in me is screaming to take control? The answer lies in understanding that trust is not something you achieve once and for all. It's a practice. It's something you choose again and again, moment by moment. Let me share with you some practical ways to begin this practice. Start with something small. Notice throughout your day where you're holding on too tightly. Maybe it's in how you react when someone doesn't respond to your message right away. Maybe it's in how you try to control other people's perceptions of you. Maybe it's in how you resist the natural flow of your day when things don't go according to plan. In these moments, practice what I call conscious releasing. Take a deep breath and physically unclench your body. Feel where you're holding tension and consciously let it go. What would trust look like in this moment? What would it feel like to allow this situation to unfold naturally? This isn't about becoming passive or letting people walk all over you. It's about discerning what's yours to do and what's not yours to control. It's about understanding that there's a difference between taking responsible action and trying to force outcomes. Think about driving a car. When you're driving, you're taking action. You're steering, accelerating, braking, but you're not controlling every other car on the road. You're not controlling the weather. You're not controlling the road conditions. You're working with what is, responding to what comes up, staying alert and present. That's what trusting the process looks like in practice. You take the actions that are yours to take, and you let go of trying to control everything else. You stay present, you stay responsive, but you release your attachment to exactly how things must unfold. This brings us to another crucial understanding. The difference between attachment and commitment. You can be deeply committed to your goals, your growth, your relationships, while remaining unattached to exactly how these things must manifest. This is where real power lies. When you're attached, you're rigid. When you're committed but unattached, you're flexible. You can adapt, flow, and respond to what life is actually presenting rather than fighting against it because it doesn't match your preconceived ideas. Consider how much energy you spend trying to make things happen exactly as you think they should. Now imagine redirecting that energy into becoming more present, more aware, more responsive to the opportunities that are actually in front of you. And this is what happens when you trust the process. But let's talk about fear for a moment, because let's be honest. Fear is often what drives our need to control. We're afraid of being hurt, afraid of failing, afraid of looking foolish, afraid of being rejected. These fears are natural, but they don't have to control us. When fear arises, and the practice is not to deny it or fight against it, but to acknowledge it and then choose trust anyway. You can say to yourself, yes, I'm feeling afraid right now, and I'm choosing to trust anyway. Yes, this is uncomfortable, and I'm choosing to stay open anyway. This is where real transformation begins. Not in the absence of fear, but in our willingness to move forward with trust even when fear is present. It's like learning to dance with uncertainty rather than trying to eliminate it. The more you practice trust, the more evidence you begin to see that trust is warranted. You start noticing the patterns of synchronicity in your life. You begin to see how things that seem like setbacks often led to unexpected opportunities. You start recognizing the wisdom that's operating in your life far beyond your conscious control. And this recognition creates a positive feedback loop. The more you trust, the more evidence you see that trust is warranted. The more evidence you see, the easier it becomes to trust. It's like building a muscle. Each time you choose trust over control, you get stronger in your ability to stay in that trust. As we deepen into this journey of trust, let's talk about what becomes possible when we truly embrace this way of living. Because what we're really discussing here isn't just a different way of thinking, it's a completely different way of being in the world. When you begin to trust the process of life, your relationships transform. Think about it. How many of our relationship struggles come from trying to control others? We try to control what they think of us, how they behave, how they feel, but real love, true, deep, meaningful connection can only exist in an atmosphere of trust and freedom. This is true in every type of relationship. Romantic partnerships, friendships, family relationships, even professional relationships. When you release the need to control others, you create space for authentic connections to flourish. You allow people to be who they truly are rather than who you think they should be. But there's something even more profound that happens. When you stop trying to control others, you also stop letting their opinions control you. You develop what I call unshakable, a deep knowing that you're exactly where you need to be, learning exactly what you need to learn, growing exactly as you need to grow. This brings us to a crucial understanding about success and achievement. Many of us have been taught that success comes from carefully controlling every variable, from forcing our way forward through sheer will and determination. But what if true success comes from alignment rather than force? When you're aligned with the natural flow of life, when you're operating from a place of trust rather than control, opportunities seem to find you. Doors open that you didn't even know existed. Resources appear just when you need them. This isn't magic. It's what happens when you stop blocking the natural flow of abundance with your need to control everything. Let me be very clear about things. This isn't about sitting back and waiting for life to hand you everything you want. It's about understanding that there's a power far greater than your individual ego at work in your life, and learning to work with that power rather than the game. Think about the ocean for a moment. A skilled surfer doesn't try to control the waves. Instead, they learn to read them, to feel them, to move with them. They develop what we might call dynamic, the ability to remain centered and responsive even in the midst of constantly changing conditions. This is what trusting the process looks like in practice. It's not about becoming passive. It's about becoming masterful at reading the signs and signals life is constantly sending you. It's about developing the wisdom to know when to act and when to wait, when to push forward and when to let things unfold. But let's talk about something that often comes up when we begin this journey, the fear of missing out. There's a voice in our heads that says, if I don't control everything, I might miss an opportunity. Something might go wrong. I might fail. This fear keeps us trapped in patterns of control that actually block the very opportunities we're afraid of missing. The truth is, when you're operating from trust rather than control, you become more aware of opportunities, not less. Your intuition sharpens. Your ability to recognize aligned opportunities improves. You develop what some might call a sixth sense about which paths to pursue and which to let pass. This is because when you're not exhausting yourself trying to control everything, you have the energy and presence of mind to notice the subtle signals life is sending you. You can feel when something is aligned and when it isn't. You can sense when to move forward and when to hold back. Think about the most successful people you know. Not just financially successful, but those who seem to have mastered the art of living well. If you look closely, you'll often find that they've developed this ability to flow with life rather than fight against it. They've learned to trust their inner guidance while remaining open to unexpected opportunities. This brings us to another crucial aspect of trusting the process, the relationship with time. When we're trying to control everything, we're usually either living in the past, regretting what happened, or living in the future, anxiously trying to prevent what might be real life, real power, real transformation. These can only happen in the present moment. When you trust the process, you naturally become more present. You stop wasting energy trying to control what's already happened or manipulate what hasn't happened yet. Instead, you bring your full attention and energy to this moment where real power exists. This presence brings with it a kind of peace that control can never provide. It's the peace of knowing that you don't have to figure everything out, that you don't have to force everything to happen, that you can trust in a wisdom greater than your own limited perspective. But here's what's really fascinating. When you develop this trust, this presence, this ability to flow with life rather than fight against it, you actually become more effective in everything you do. Your actions become more powerful because they're aligned with the natural flow of life rather than working against it. Think about times in your life when everything seemed to flow effortlessly. Chances are these were times when you weren't trying to control everything. You were present, responsive, and open to what was emerging. This state of flow isn't something that just happens by chance. It's something we can learn to access more consistently by developing our trust muscle. As we move toward the close of our time together, I want to share with you what I believe is the most powerful truth about trusting the process. When you finally let go of control, you don't lose power, you gain it. But it's a different kind of power. It's not the power of force and manipulation. It's the power of alignment and flow. You see, we're standing at a crucial moment in human consciousness. More and more people are awakening to the understanding that our old ways of forcing, controlling, and manipulating aren't working anymore. They're not working in our personal lives. They're not working in our relationships. And they're not working in our world. The new power that's emerging is the power of trust. Trust in the intelligence of life itself. Trust in the perfect unfolding of each moment. Trust in our own inner wisdom. This isn't blind faith. It's a practical, grounded trust based on understanding how life actually works. Think about the most important breakthroughs in your life, the most meaningful relationships, the most profound insights. Did they come through control or did they come through openness? Did they come through forcing or did they come through allowing? When we really look at our lives, we see that the most precious things we have came not through control, but through trust. But here's what makes this journey so powerful. As you develop this trust, you become more of who you truly are. The energy you were using to control everything can now be used for creation, for connection, for contribution. You become more authentic, more present, more alive. This is where true freedom lies. Not in controlling everything, but in trusting the process so deeply that you're free to be fully yourself. Free to follow your inspiration. Free to create, free to love, free to live. You might be wondering, but how do I maintain this trust when things get difficult, when life presents challenges, when everything seems to be falling apart? These are exactly the moments when trust becomes most powerful, because trust isn't about believing everything will be easy. It's about knowing that everything is working for your growth and evolution, even the challenges. When you trust the process, you stop seeing challenges as obstacles to be controlled and start seeing them as opportunities to be embraced. You develop what I call resilient trust, the ability to stay open and responsive even in the face of difficulty. This is where real transformation happens, not in avoiding challenges, but in meeting them with trust rather than control. Not in forcing our way through life, but in dancing with whatever life brings us. This is the art of conscious living. And here's something remarkable. As you develop this trust, you become a living example for others. Your presence alone begins to inspire people. They see in you what's possible when we let go of control and trust the process of life. You become a walking invitation to a different way of being. But remember, this isn't about perfection. You don't have to trust perfectly all the time. The goal isn't to never feel the urge to control again. The goal is to develop a new relationship with life itself, one based on trust rather than fear, on flow rather than force. Start where you are. Start with the small things. Notice where you're holding on too tightly and practice letting go just a little bit. Notice where you're trying to force things to happen and experiment with allowing them to unfold naturally. Notice where you're resisting what is and practice accepting it as it is. As you do this, you'll begin to experience what I call trust momentum. Each time you choose trust over control and see positive results, it becomes easier to trust the next time. Each time you let go and things work out better than you could have planned, your trust grows stronger. This is how we create lasting change, not through forcing ourselves to be different, but through practicing new ways of being until they become natural. Not through controlling every aspect of our transformation, but through trusting the process of growth itself. You're already on this journey. The very fact that you're here listening to these words means that something in you is ready for this shift. Something in you knows that there's a better way than constant control. Something in you is ready to trust. So I invite you to make a decision right now. Not a decision to never try to control anything again. That would just be another form of control. Instead, make a decision to begin this journey of trust. Make a decision to experiment with letting go, with flowing, with trusting. Start today. Start right now. Take a deep breath and feel what it would be like to trust life completely. Feel what it would be like to know, really know that you're supported, that you're guided, that you're exactly where you need to be. This is your moment. This is your invitation to step into a new way of being. This is your opportunity to discover what becomes possible when you stop controlling and start trusting. The process is waiting for you. Life is waiting for you. All the joy, all the peace, all the love, all the success you've been trying to control into existence. It's all waiting for you on the other side of trust. You don't have to see the whole path to take the first step. You don't have to understand everything to begin. You don't have to be perfect to start. You just have to be willing to trust the process. The journey from control to trust is the journey from fear to love, from resistance to acceptance, from force to flow. It's the journey from who you think you should be to who you truly are. And it begins with a single choice, the choice to trust. Make that choice today. Choose trust over control. Choose flow over force. Choose freedom over fear. The life you've been trying to control into existence is nothing compared to the life that's waiting to unfold when you finally trust the process. The time is now. The choice is yours. Trust the process and watch as life unfolds in ways more beautiful than you could have ever controlled it to be.